boomers and straights, Nameless Potato here. Welcome to the first episode of a brand new educational series on this channel, Aequalitatem, an LGBTQ plus educational video series. This series will consist of 8 videos covering the following topics: LGBTQ plus history, sexualities, romantic identities, gender identities, queer representation, relationships, LGBTQ plus discrimination and gatekeeping, and how to be a good ally. This episode, we will be talking about LGBTQ plus history, how far we've come, and how far we still have to go. The goal of this series is to educate people about the LGBTQ plus community, to encourage acceptance and understanding of those who may be seen as different than the norm. The name of this series, Aequalitatem, means equality in Latin, and that is what we're promoting in this series. This series is written by an American, and therefore will be focusing more from an American point of view. All resources used in these videos will be available down below, so I encourage you to check them all out for yourself. I'll also be doing my best to answer any questions you put in the comment section below. This video will include some triggering topics at certain points. Before these points, a trigger warning will appear with the type of triggering content and a time to skip to avoid listening to it. Now, what is LGBTQ+? The Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines the term as lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer/questioning one's sexual or gender identity. The acronym is also said as LGBTQIAP+, which stands for lesbian, gay, bi, trans, queer, intersex, asexual, socioromantic, and pansexual plus, to be more inclusive to all, but the plus in the name encompasses all identities that belong to the community that isn't listed in the acronym. The LGBTQ plus community consists of people who are considered outside of the normal for our society. This includes people who like the same gender or multiple genders, those whose gender is not the same as their sex, and those whose gender did not fit into a binary gender construct. I'll be covering these and their labels in future videos in this series. So, where did these labels come from? What's the purpose of Pride Month? Why are queer people discriminated against? By analyzing history, we can find the answers to all of these questions. Ever since love has been classified as a meaningful concept, queer people have existed. Despite the beliefs of some, the people within the LGBTQ plus community haven't just sprung up in the past century or so. Throughout histories, we can see examples of homosexuality being presented in a positive light. One of the most prominent examples is Apollo, the Greek god of sun, archery, medicine, and much more. Apollo is widely known for his many relationships throughout all of his mythos. A lot of Apollo's relationships were with males, like his relationship with Hyacinthus. While a lot of the relationships ended in tragedy, so did quite a few of his heterosexual ones. From ancient Greece, we also see a complete opposite side of the spectrum in the goddess Athena. Athena is one of 3 virgin goddesses, showing off love and sexual intercourse entirely, instead focusing on the art of war. Ancient Japan also has its own form in the way of Inari. Inari is a very important Shinto deity, and a lot of the shrines in Japan are dedicated to them. Inari has no gender, and they appear however they wish or is beneficial to the situation. But how about some real-life people? All of these are just myths, therefore they can't mean anything. Well, firstly, the religion of the people reflects their views. Therefore, if a culture had a deity or a well-known myth that involved homosexuality, it's safe to assume that they were okay with the whole thing. But I hear ya. Let's talk about some key historical people who are part of the LGBTQ plus community. One example of a historical figure who was most likely part of the LGBTQ plus community is Leonardo da Vinci. While we cannot be fully certain of his sexuality, there is no information that he was ever romantically or sexually attracted to women. However, on April 9, 1476, da Vinci was accused of sodomy, homosexual sex, and arrested. While the charges were dropped, historians suspect there may have been something going on between da Vinci and his 15-year-old employee, Giacomo Caprate. I am so sorry, I totally probably butchered that. While this kind of relationship would be looked upon nowadays, it was very common during this day and age. Da Vinci was not the only Renaissance man who allegedly slept with other men. The list is long and includes Michelangelo and Machiavelli. I am so sorry, I cannot pronounce Italian names, which is depressing because I'm part Italian. Sodomy was illegal, however, lots of men during this time were, in practice, bisexual. But how did we get from homosexuality being illegal to the Pride celebrations we know and love today? Well, To answer that question, we must travel down a long, bloody, and dangerous path through history and the struggle for queer rights. Want to join me? A lot of homophobia, people being against the LGBTQ plus community, stems from religion. A lot of religions, including Christianity, the Catholic faith, and more, prohibit homosexuality. This is often due to verses in the Bible and other religious texts suggesting this belief is encouraged by the God they believe in. Due to the spreading of these religions throughout history, this view of anti-gays quickly became the norm. So, throughout this entire point, I'm not going to be able to say these names right, so I sincerely apologize. Some of the earliest gay rights movements date back to 1897, when Magnus Hirschfeld established the first gay rights organization. According to a Pride Month pamphlet released by the U.S. government, another of the first documented gay rights organizations was founded in 1924 by Henry Gerber. This organization was called the Society for Human Rights and was founded in Chicago. In 1850, the Matching Society was founded by Henry Hay. The society focuses on social acceptance and support for homosexuals and is one of the first sustained gay rights groups in the U.S. Josie Syria, owner of a gay bar called the Black Cat, successfully sued California for the right to serve known homosexuals in 1951. Things, however, turned to the worst in April of 1952 when the American Psychiatric Association lists homosexuality as a sociopathic personality disturbance. About a year later, current U.S. President Dwight D. Eisenhower passes an executive order banning homosexuals from working for the federal government, deeming them a quote-unquote security risk. 1955 brought back some hope when the first lesbian rights organization called the Daughters of Bilitis, DOB, was formed. In July 1961, Illinois became the first U.S. state to take away its sodomy laws, and in September of that year, the first documentary about homosexual people airs on a local station in California. It seemed that the tables were finally turning in favor of equal rights for queer people. In 1965, a riot occurred at Compton's cafeteria after drag queens and other queer-identifying people refused to leave the restaurant because of quote-unquote service fee that the management of the establishment placed on cross-dressing patrons. Picketing done by queer people the next day, the cafeteria did not back down. There was some success in 1966 when three gay men protested the state of New York's Liquor Commission's ban on serving gay people as it deemed them disorderly. The commission eventually backed down. A more well-known event occurred on June 28, 1969, the Stonewall riots. The event took place at the Stonewall Inn, a safe haven for all LGBTQ plus people. It began when police arrived at the inn to arrest those in house. Instead of backing down or staying inside the inn, the inhabitants stood outside and protested. After hours of protesting, the police finally gave in and left. This is a highly recognized event and is credited with kicking off the gay rights movement in the U.S. The anniversary of this event has been celebrated every year on June 28th since 1970. 1973 was the year Lambda Legal was founded as the first legal organization to support queer people. At first, they were denied nonprofit status, but after the case went to the Supreme Court, the status was granted. Despite this, Maryland became the first state to ban same-sex marriage in the same year. 1973 also featured the first meeting of the Parents and Friends of Gays on March 26th. Finally, on December 15th, the American Psychiatric Association removed homosexuality from its list of mental disorders by a vote of 5,854 to 3,810. 1974 featured Kathy Kozachenko becoming the first openly gay person to be elected to any public office, and Elaine Noble becoming the first openly gay person to be elected to a state office. The first federal gay rights bill is introduced on the topic of discrimination based on sexual orientation in 1975. Despite being sent to the Judiciary Committee, it was never brought up for consideration. 1975 also showed Technical Sergeant Leonardo P. Maltovich, who revealed his sexuality to his commanding officer and then was forcibly discharged from the Air Force 6 months later. He is a Vietnam War veteran that earned both the Purple Heart and the Bronze Star. Eventually, in 1980, it is ruled the discharge was improper and he is awarded his back pay and a retroactive promotion. Ray Richards, a tennis player who underwent gender reassignment surgery in 1975, was banned from competing in the U.S. Women's Open based on a women-born women rule in 1976. After challenging the decision, the New York Supreme Court ruled in her favor in 1977, allowing her to compete that year. More positivity comes on October 14, 1979, when the first national march on Washington for gay and lesbian rights takes place. It draws between 75,000 to 125,000 people to march for LGBTQ plus rights. Wisconsin, on March 2, 1982, becomes the first state to outlaw discrimination based on sexual orientation. Mixed messages were sent by President Bill Clinton in 1993, however, when he signed a military prohibition on queer people serving in the military. He also, however, signed an act called Don't Ask, Don't Tell, banning the harassment of closeted, people who have not come out as LGBTQ plus yet, individuals. 3 years later, Clinton signs the Defense of Marriage Act, which banned the federal recognition of same-sex marriage. This act defined marriage as a legal union between one man and one woman as husband and wife. A popular comedian, Ellen DeGeneres, comes out as lesbian in 1997. June of 2003 brings the removal of the homosexual conduct law, decriminalizing same-sex sexual contact. On October 28, 2009, President Barack Obama signed the Matthew Shepard and James Beard Jr. Hate Crimes Prevention Act, making it law. This act helped police and investigators more effectively investigate and prosecute hate crimes. September 20th, 2011 brought the removal of the Don't Ask, Don't Tell Act, allowing gays and lesbians to serve in the military. On October 6, 2014, the Supreme Court allows 5 marriage rulings to stand, therefore allowing same-sex couples to marry in Utah, Oklahoma, Virginia, Indiana, and Wisconsin, as well as opening the door to the right to marry in other states. After hearing oral arguments about same-sex marriage, the Supreme Court rules that states cannot ban gay marriage in a 5-4 majority. Eric Fanning became the first openly gay secretary of a military branch in 2016. That same year, on June 24th, President Obama announces the first LGBTQ plus monument on the site of the 1969 Stonewall riots. 6 days later, Secretary of Defense Carter announces the lifting of the ban against transgender people serving in the military. Despite all this positivity and progress, the Trump-Pence administration made it its goal to take away the rights of LGBTQ plus Americans. Firstly, the DOJ, Department of Justice, takes away civil rights for transgender students on February 22, 2017. Then, on October 4th, they claim the 1964 Civil Rights Act does not prohibit job discrimination upon the basis of gender identity, allowing bosses to fire transgender workers. The DOJ then states the same thing about sexual orientation on February 26, 2018. The government makes their intentions clear on October 21st, same year, stating its plan to erase civil rights protections for trans people. President Donald Trump signs a ban prohibiting transgender people from serving in the military on April 12, 2019. On August 14th, the Department of Labor proposes a plan that would allow employers with federal contractors to discriminate against LGBTQ plus workers. Following all this hatred and homophobia, President Joe Biden began almost immediately to start fixing the rights for LGBTQ plus people, removing the ban against trans people serving in the military on January 25th, 2021. We've gone such a long way, but there's so much more to be done. For example, the rights of transgender youth are severely lacking. 75% of transgender youth feel unsafe at school and have significantly lower GPAs. They often single out transgender youth by not respecting their identity, pronouns, or correct name. Transgender youth are fearful to come to school because of transphobia from their teachers. 59% of trans students have been denied access to the bathroom corresponding to their gender identity. They are punished for being who they are and are denied opportunities to go on field trips or participate in sports. They are bullied, then told it's their fault for it. In a study done by University of Pittsburgh, they found that transgender youth have a significantly higher suicide rate than transgender youth. LGBTQ plus youth are 3.5 times more likely to attempt suicide. Transgender teens are 5.87 times more likely to make an attempt. Gay and lesbian youth are 3.71 times more likely, and bisexual youth are 3.69 times more likely. 40% of the homeless teen population are LGBTQ plus kids who were kicked out of their homes. LGBTQ plus kids face bullying, hate crimes, cyberbullying, and sexual and physical dating violence. LGBTQ plus kids are 140% more likely to skip school than their heterosexual peers. The things LGBTQ plus youth face are ridiculous, and there's so much more we can do to protect them. However, we'll go into more detail of this issue in a later video in the series. Another topic I want to discuss in this video is why we celebrate Pride Month. Pride Month is June in the United States. We celebrate Pride Month every June to remember the achievements of the past and those who were lost along the way. The LGBTQ plus community has struggled so much to get where we are, and we still have a ways to go. A question I see a lot online is, why aren't straights included in Pride? The answer to this is a simple one. We all didn't suffer the way the community did. No one was killed for being straight. No one was fired for being cisgender. Cisgender heterosexuals are considered the normal and didn't have to fight for any of their rights. That concludes episode 1 of Aequalitatem, an LGBTQ plus educational video series. As I stated earlier, all resources used will be in the description below. Feel free to comment down below any criticism, questions, or anything I left out. Like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the other side. Bye! 'Cause I will never